Hi, this is Elena with Black Sheep 303 Creative, and my project today is a sort of floral card, floral and bird card, using a metallic watercolor palette on a black background. So this is rich black soft finish cardstock cut to 6x6, and I'm going to stamp that big background stamp. It's called Birds and Branches from Elizabeth Craft Designs, brand new, really, really cool. And I'm going to stamp it in VersaMark ink onto the piece of black soft finish cardstock, and then I'm going to heat emboss it in white on the black background. So the image is going to stand out from the black background, obviously. But the purpose of this was because I wanted to try out my new Prima Metallic Accents watercolor palette on a black background, because it is kind of a cool effect. And this is a little bit different for, you know, a floral card. You know, you don't normally see black as the background on floral cards, but you know me, I had to try something a little bit strange, so I just went ahead and gave this experiment a shot. So here's the palette, very pretty, and I have color swatched it on both black and white cardstock so you can see the difference. It's just the top row is the row on the left, and then the bottom row is the row on the right, and as you can see, each one is swatched the same on the white, black and the white, and you can see like the black stands out a lot more on the, it's more silver on the black, whereas it's black on the white, you know, and there are a few other differences. And the white is definitely slightly softer. Like the white on the white doesn't really show at all, whereas everything shows very well on the black cardstock, especially that top purple, which is like kind of an interference color where it becomes very iridescent. So I'm using my water brush dipped in a glass of water, no water in the brush, and I'm just going to color in each of the elements using one of the colors on the palette. So I'm not doing any fancy shading or anything, I'm just doing some flat coloring. So, you know, like the leaves are all the bottom, the second from the bottom green on the left, the big flowers are all the yellow, the middle yellow color, you know, and there you go. So that's the completed look. And it's very, very shiny too, like very metallic. But this background is really busy, so I wanted to make sure that I had some elements that stood out from the background and were more, you know, focal elements, like they would draw attention to themselves and separate out from the background. So my thinking with this is to stamp and emboss the birds and branches a second time, and then I'm going to fussy cut them out and mount them onto some foam tape so that they will be raised off the surface of the background, and so you'll notice them more. So they will become like the more important elements in that pretty busy background stamp. And so I will list the colors that I used for each element on the card, like which paint I used to color them. And it's not anything fancy really, but the birds I do change. So right now they're blue, sort of blue and purple with a little bit of pink, because I was thinking that purpley color at the top was really, I thought it stood out quite a bit from the black background. And so I thought that would help make those focal elements really important. So I'm going to fill both this one and the other branch in exactly the same way, and then I will fussy cut them out, as you will see in a moment when we get all my elements together. But first, let me stamp my greeting. So my greeting is Plant Dreams from the Plant Grow and Blooms clear stamp set from Elizabeth Craft Designs, as well as that bloom that's upside down on the top there from the Spring Sentiment stamps, also from Elizabeth Craft Designs. And I'm stamping this in Wilted Violet Distress Oxide onto some 85-pound white soft finish cardstock. It was a really nice coordinating color with what I had going. So now I have everything sort of cut out and ready to go. So I've fussy cut out the birds with the branches and mounted them on foam tape. A lot of foam tape, as you can see. The black panel I have trimmed down to 5 3/8 by 5 3/8, and then that pink panel is 5 5/8 by 5 5/8. The card base is 100-pound white soft finish cardstock cut to 5.5 by 5.5. And then my or the card base is 5.5 by 5.5. You know what I'm saying. And then I die cut out the Plant Dreams with the second smallest die in the Moda Scrap Dashing Circles die set. And the pink matte, I die cut out using the second smallest die in the Dotted Scallop Circles dies. And those fit together just absolutely perfectly. And then the bloom, I just cut with my paper cutter into like a fishtail banner shape. And then I have a mat out of the pink paper for that as well. And I will cut the matching matted fishtail end on that in a second as soon as I get this adhered down. The pink paper is from Gina K Designs. It's Passionate Pink. The other paper is from Elizabeth Craft Designs Soft Finish Cardstock. And as you can see, I'm using 6mm adhesive on the two greetings to get them adhered to their mats. And I will use that again to adhere them to the panels, the main card panel. And then I'm going to use 10mm adhesive tape on the back of the black and the pink panels, as well as the card base. So I'm going to adhere this black panel right into the center of the pink. And my white card base is going to get adhered kind of in the center of the pink panel, because I couldn't get a 5 3/8 by 5 3/8 card base because my paper's only 8.5 by 11, so I had to go with 5.5 by 5.5. But that's okay because the card will just, when it folds up, it will just fold back behind the card base, so it works just fine. And now I'm going to adhere my fussy cutout birds on top of their mates on the flat panel, in the hope that they are going to stand out from that background panel. Now, when you look at this, you probably think the same thing that I did at the time, which is like, well, those are okay, but they're not really standing out that much. Even on the foam tape, you don't really notice them. I mean, you notice the greetings because of the pink mats, but like everything else kind of becomes one big pattern. And that's kind of a problem. I didn't really like that. And I thought I'd ruin the whole card. But I decided I would try heat embossing the birds, just the birds again, onto some white cardstock in white heat embossing powder. And I would paint them with the same paint palette, just on white instead, because I was hoping that they would appear lighter and brighter. And so I used the yellow colors and then the pink, because the pink was a good match to the Passionate Pink cardstock I was using on the card, in an effort to make these birds stand out from the background. I was thinking, you know, we've got a dark background going. If I paint the birds a much lighter color, maybe that's going to help, you know, it's going to bring up the contrast level and it's going to make them really stand out. And then you'll also really notice the pink elements on them too, which will help bring them all together. And then I took my black glaze pen and I went over the eyes so that you could see them, because the yellow and the white was basically the eyes were just disappearing. So I've adhered 2 of them down already with my Zig 2A glue pen, and now I'm adhering the third one down just right over the top of that blue one that I had kind of messed around with. You can see how messy it was. Maybe you've noticed it was pretty messy. I tried some different things to fix it and it didn't work. And so once those were dry, that made a huge difference. You can see how shiny all those metallic painted objects are, but the yellow really helps those birds stand out from the background. And now I feel like you actually look at the birds first before you look at the rest of the objects. And just by gluing them on top of the blue birds, you'd have to really look close to tell that those were not the original birds. So hopefully that inspires you a little bit with a way that you can fix mistakes that seem huge and like you've wrecked the card. There are ways to bring it back. And I hope I've also tempted you by the Metallic Accents paint palette. There is pretty cool, and those Elizabeth Craft Designs background stamps that are brand new are pretty awesome as well. So supplies are linked in the video description and over my blog. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, why not? Please do so. I'd love that. Thanks. Have a great day.